Welcome back to Hex and Harmony. This is Can You Believe It, episode 18. And today we're exploring the element of spirit, sometimes called ether. And this element can feel the hardest to grasp because, unlike earth, air, fire, or water, it isn't something that we can hold in our hands or measure with our senses. And I had to say that or measure with our senses because you can't really hold air in your hands either, but you can feel it. But spirit is a little bit different, but it is the element that gives meaning to all the other elements.
Right.
And it's behind the breath. It is the quiet pulse of life that holds everything together. Spirit is the mystery that connects us not only to each other, but also to something greater than ourselves. And it doesn't matter what you call that. It could be spirit, it could be universe, it could be God, it could be source, the divine, whatever. That doesn't matter. But it ties us in with that something bigger than who we are as humans. And throughout history, different traditions have named and described spirit in their own ways. Some see it as the soul, some the eternal spark at the core of who we are. Others experience it as a field of energy that surrounds and permeates all living things. But however you understand spirit, it is what reminds us that life is more than what we can see on the surface. And so today we're going to spend some time with this idea, not as an abstract concept that floats out of our reach, but as something that we can notice and feel and engage with in real and practical ways. So I want to bring it from what we tend to think of as something distant into something that's more in the presence, in the spaces between the words that I'm saying and between everything else, and just bring it into some concrete. So I want to start with a question. And when you hear the word spirit or ether, however you refer to it in terms of an element, what comes to mind?
Well, when I hear spirit or I think of spirit or aether, I think of dark matter. It's the thing that, I mean, scientists know that it exists because of the way it holds galaxies together, but they can't quite see it or measure it directly. They can only observe the way that it reacts upon other things in the atmosphere. And spirit and aether feels like that to me. It's the unseen force, but it shapes everything. It's the invisible gravity that keeps life from flying apart. And like you touched on it in your introduction, when we talk about the other elements, they're tangible. You can touch the soil, you can feel the wind, you can see the flames, you can drink the water. But spirit is different. It's the thing holding the whole system in balance, just like dark matter holds the cosmos in place. And you also hit on it in your in your intro too, that spirit is the in between. It's not just what's inside of us or outside of us, but it's the space connecting those two.
Right. I
It's
I kind of see it as it's outside of us and it's
mhm.
in us and it is us.
And to me, it is all one thing.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, it's not the spirit that's inside of us and the spirit that's outside of us. Spirit is like the universal energy,
Right.
could be said. It's spirit, and it just permeates everything. Like, even inside of each of our cells, it's the fabric of the universe, really. It's
Kind
the
of
the
like if
building
spirit
blocks.
ceased to be, we would cease to be, like everything would collapse. The whole
Yeah.
system, if you want to call it a system, of humanity, of Earth, of outer space, of everything, it would all just collapse and cease to be.
Yes. Yeah, it's what's giving it all life and meaning. I mean, I think if there were no spirit, we would just cease to be, but we would be just like dry husks. There would be no life, there would be no energy, no spirit in anything. We would just be a dry husk that would just blow away, you know?
I agree with that. I also would say, to me, spirit is the animating force of all things, which is why we are all connected, because we are all connected through spirit. It's that which gives life to everything, even though people think certain things are inanimate. They may not move in the same ways that we move as animals, mammals, insects, or whatever, but everything has spirit to
And I'm
me.
glad you said that, because when you said it's the thing that animates us, I was going to ask, what about inanimate objects like a rock? So I'm glad you furthered that and
Yeah.
brought that up, because I mean, I agree with you, but
Hmm.
just for the sake of discussion and argument, I was going to say, well, what about the rocks? What about the inanimate objects?
Yeah.
So,
Well, absolutely the rocks, because think of the stones and the crystals that we use in our practice. It's the ether, their spirit or their ether,
Hmm.
that gives them those properties that we use them for, you know?
Right. Hmm.
That's why we gravitate to different crystals or different stones for different purposes, because their ether is animating that energy in a specific way for each specific rock.
and then
So
to even
yeah.
take it a step further with other things that we think of as inanimate objects, and this always comes to mind because as a Reiki practitioner, when I'm talking to people who are not familiar with Reiki, and I'm like, well, we're taught in science class that everything is energy, that energy is all around us. The chair you're sitting in is energy. The table
Hmm.
your computer is on, your computer itself is energy. And so
Mhm.
that energy is spirit. That energy is ether. It is what the energy is, what's holding it together. It is
Right.
that element. So even
Mhm.
though you think of a table as just being a thing that a person made, but it is alive in a sense with energy, and it's not the same animated process as you or I, or even a crystal, for instance, because
Hmm.
it's a different energy in a crystal than is in a table, but it's still energy, and it still has that in it, holding
Right.
it together in a force, in a uniform way that we identify as a table.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes.
Of course, when I was in high school and I was learning all this, is like that was so far and foreign to me. I never thought about it like that. Now that I'm an adult and I've gone much more woo, I guess you could say, with all of this, I'm like, man, I should have paid attention to that way back in the day in school. I'm like, I just think of where I would be now if I had
Right.
graduated. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's like I can look back now, and those things that did not make sense to me at the time, in the fact that I was not science inclined, I now look at it and I'm like, oh, how I wish I had been.
Right. It's never too late, though, to
Oh, it's
start learning
not.
more about
It's
science.
not. And I
Yeah.
have. So, I mean, yeah. So these next two questions, I will go ahead and ask them together,
Hmm.
because we've kind of touched on them. So you can expand what we've already said, or if something else comes to mind, definitely bring that in, because I want to have a good discussion here. But how do you see spirit as different from the other four elements, and how does spirit tie together the other four elements in your understanding?
I think you mentioned part of it when you were discussing spirit, but it's different in that spirit is part of everything, and because you have to have spirit to create each different element. But the other four elements that we already discussed, they have a more tangible, visible, or sentient quality to them on a physical level. Whereas you can feel spirit, but it's not the same as the way you would touch the earth, or the way that you feel a breeze running across your head.
Right. It's kind of an inner feeling,
Right.
not a physical feeling, but it can manifest
Right.
as physical depending on how you're interacting with it. But it's definitely has that inner quality that the others don't. Like, you touch fire and it burns physically.
Right.
If you get in the shower, then water is wet physically on your skin. You're not feeling that on the inside. It is
Right.
definitely external and physical, whereas spirit is, you feel it, but it's just a different way of feeling it.
Right.
Right. The water cleanses your skin, but it's the spirit or the ether of water that makes you feel cleansed.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very subtle and very hard to explain differences. I think when you get it, you get it. And when you don't, you're like, what the hell are these people talking about?
And I think that because there is such a subtlety to it, that is why there's so much difference of opinion in society. And I say society knowing that there's different factions in society, different cultures, different whatever, that sees spirit in different ways. And because it can be hard to explain it because it is so subtle, I think that sometimes sadly contributes to such disagreement over it, because I think in the end all cultures are trying to say the same thing about spirit, but our muggle brains get in the way because it is so subtle that it's hard to understand that we're all saying the same thing, and then we just end up arguing about it because that's how humans are, sometimes stupid, but you know how it is.
Well, I'll use a psychological term in psychology and personality psychology. There's a term, low curiosity. I mean, it's just a trait. You're born with high curiosity or low curiosity. And it's the low curious people who they don't bother to, they think it's stupid or whatever because they just have low curiosity and they're not interested in understanding the subtleties of it.
Right.
Right.
And they just think their way is the right way and nobody else's way matters because obviously it's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I think spirit is not only the animating principle, it's also the transformative principle. It's the spirit that's within. I mean, we talk about fire transforming, being transformation, and water being transformation for some things. But I think it's in the spirit of ether that gives those elements the ability to transform. Like, trying to think, like when fire meets water and makes steam, it's the spirit of of ether that allows that steam to rise from the water. And when the earth is nourished by rain, it's that ether of spirit that nourishes the earth by the rain,
Right.
that allows that kind of transformation. I think in ritual, spirit is the element that completes the circle. It makes the other four elements feel alive rather than separate. It allows them to become cohesive, to become one thing.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome.
So is spirit something that is universal, or is it unique to each person?
It's both. It's universal because it's the same starlight that touches all of us and that flows through everything, but it's also unique in how it flows through each person, because your spirit doesn't sound or feel the same as mine. Just like two instruments, you may have two guitars, but they play differently. They sound different depending on what chords you strike and how they resonate. And I think it's the same with spirit. It's personal and unique to you, but at the same time, it's universal. It just gets tuned differently.
Yeah, I look at it in terms of something very similar, but I express it in a different way. So that kind of is another way of saying what you just said. Um, it is spirit is universal because spirit is. It just
Right,
is. But the
right.
way we relate to it or the way we understand it is unique for each person, for each individual.
Right.
So it doesn't change. It is what it is.
Hmm.
But
Right.
we each see it and understand it and interact with it is where the uniqueness comes in.
Very true. That's very
Right.
well said.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. But also, every everybody's on a different journey. Everybody's on a different path. So how they relate to spirit is going to be different based upon their level of understanding, overstanding, and if they even know that it exists. So it's both in that we are all connected to it, but we are all facets of it. Like the ocean is made up of billions of drops of water. We are those billions of drops of water that come together to create the ocean, create the spirit. But each of us also has somewhat individualistic characteristics in being part of that ocean, that part of the spirit.
I like that way of explaining it. And I think I'm going to start using that. I've been using this, and I'll tell you this, but I think I like yours better because I'm a very ocean person,
Yeah.
watery person, so I'm going to go with that. But
Mhm.
how I've always been explaining it to people when they ask for my opinion, and I don't really tell it unless somebody asks for my opinion, except now I'm going to tell you because you told me yours, so I'm going to tell you that.
Just tell us, Michelle.
Even though you didn't ask for it. I'm like, it's kind of like a diamond that's cut and faceted. You have this diamond, but let's say this diamond is huge and it's bigger than you.
Mhm.
And you look at it and you can only see one facet of it. But that one facet is not the whole diamond. It's
Right.
just the facet that you see. But it doesn't mean that the rest of it isn't there. And so
Mhm.
if you're looking at one facet and I'm on the other side and I'm seeing a different facet, what we're seeing are two different things, but we're seeing the same thing
Right.
because we're both looking at the same diamond. We're just seeing it from a different angle, a different view. My side might have a flaw in it that your side doesn't. but it's the same diamond. But yeah, like all these drops, but it's one ocean. I
Right.
like that.
Hmm.
But you knew I'd like that.
Yep. Yep.
Oh. What practices, rituals, or moments help you feel connected to spirit?
That's really hard. That's a hard question because you either are connected or you're not. And it's kind of hard to seek spirit. I mean, it's always there waiting to be noticed. I guess I would say meditation is the practice that helps me connect both to spirit because it takes quieting your mind and just feeling and feeling it. There's no like specific path you can take, specific steps you can follow to get there. You just have to clear your mind and let it come and feel the spirit because it's everywhere. I mean, you could find it anywhere and everywhere at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So all you can really do is quiet your mind, quiet your thoughts, and just during meditation, I guess, is where I best connect. But once you've made that connection, then you feel it in everything you do and in every step you take once you find the connection and I mean it's not hiding, it's there. It's not like you
Right.
have to, it's there, but you have to feel it, you have to notice it. It's just waiting to be noticed. And once you notice it, during a walk outside under the night sky, during divination when the symbols just start speaking to you and you have an understanding, you know all of those things are spirit, connecting to you and calling to you. When you start noticing synchronicities and things that are just way too much to be coincidence, that's you noticing spirit and that's spirit getting your attention.
Right. Um, I would say that um, connecting definitely, as Tegan said, you have to be present because it's a very subtle energy. It's subtle. If you're not paying attention, if you're not focused, if you're not being in a state of awareness, you're not going to feel, see, or experience it unless you are making that conscious effort because it is, I feel, in everything to be able, since that makes it more subtle and makes it harder to grasp it. So taking a moment to clear out anything else, to release anything else, to remove anything else that could possibly deaden the senses to the energy that it is, the frequency that it is, needs to be done first. But as you continue to do that, as you continue to be aware of spirit, it becomes easier each time you make that connection. Some people who meditate, start out with, just a couple of minutes to get started, then lengthen that time. But each time you connect, the connection is, how we used to have radios, dating myself, but back in the day, you had to turn the dial to
I remember that.
to find the station and turning the dial. So, turning the dial, it's hard, especially if you got a 92.3 and a 92.5, you have to tweak it ever so slightly. But then when they came out with, you push the button and you can preset the channel. So it's like once you get into the habit of connecting, it's like we move from turning the dial physically to pushing the button to connect automatically. So it's a matter of quieting the external so that you can go within to connect and then be connected without.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I can do that in a lot of different ways. It can be meditation, like Tegan said. That's always a good one because when you meditate, it quiets your mind. The longer you do it, it will definitely quiet your mind if you sit there long enough. But
Mm-hmm.
I can also be in a group actively praying. Let's say I go to temple or something because the high holy days in Judaism are coming up, so that's on my mind. So let's say I go to temple and we're praying together. There's a lot of noise with that, there's a lot of sound, but being in a communal space and we're all focused on the same thing, that can connect me with spirit. Or I can be in an art gallery and see a piece of art that really speaks to me in a way that gets my mind focused on that painting or that sculpture or whatever. Or I can be taking a walk in the woods, like Tegan mentioned as well, and just being in one with nature and being in a place that's different from my everyday like that can get me in that awareness and connecting with spirit. But if I'm not actively doing that, I mean, I can be doing those things physically, but if my mind isn't tuned in to what I'm doing, then it's a whole different experience. Like I can be in the woods, but if my brain is focused on work instead of nature around me, then I'm not
Mm-hmm.
connecting with spirit. Or I
Right.
can be in temple with everybody else, and like I can be saying these words, but they mean nothing because my brain is elsewhere and I'm not connecting with spirit. Or I can sit on my meditation cushion but not be focusing on my breath or whatever, and I'm not connecting with spirit. So it's not necessarily what I'm doing so much as how I'm doing it
Mm-hmm.
and being aware and making a conscious choice to connect with spirit
Right.
does it.
Yeah. I think that I mean that like the things that you're saying is making me think about just the whole new age concept, or it's not even new age, but of mindfulness, of being in the present moment at the present time. And that's when, you can hear spirit. Once you
Right,
make that connection, like Baylit was saying earlier, once you make that connection and recognize it, then it becomes easier and easier to recognize it, in real life, IRL, basically, because when you're in the moment and you're paying attention to the present moment and where you are, you can recognize spirit everywhere.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in temple when you're praying. It doesn't have to
right,
be while you're in the middle of ritual, or, scrying at a candle flame or whatever. You can recognize it in, laughter with a friend or a group of friends.
right.
You can see it when, um, what I was thinking when you were talking about being in an art gallery, I was like, yeah, just when you're noticing the way the light filters through the branches of a tree and being in awe of that beauty, that's being in touch with spirit. That's spirit moving, within you and between you and the tree, and just appreciating and respecting those things. You can feel it inside your body, even though we've said over and over it's not something you can touch or feel, it's not tangible. It is something. I mean, it does give a sensation, once you recognize that sensation is what it is, that it is spirit. But it's not something you can touch and hold in your hand. It's just something you feel internally. Or I guess just like dark matter, we can't measure it, but we can measure the way it makes us feel and the sensations inside of our bodies that it causes.
Mm-hmm.
That is beautifully put.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Those were my questions that I had prepared. Does anyone have anything else that they are dying to say about spirit?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah, no, I would just remind people that spirit is not something that you chase after. It's something that you remember to notice because it's always there. It's very pervasive. It's everywhere. It's out, I mean, you're breathing it in right now.
From it.
Yes.
It's always there.
It's watching you.
The all-seeing eye. God,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that terrified me when I was a kid. Just saying.
Terrified everybody. Keep us in line.
I remember being a teenager. My younger sister and I, we're only 2 years apart, and we used to argue a lot. My older sister's 5 years older. She was gone by then.
Mm-hmm.
My younger sister and I would argue a lot, and my dad would always ask us questions, and we would like not always be 100% truthful about what the other one did because we were trying to get each other in trouble. And I never did anything wrong. If you asked me, it was all her. Same with her. It was never her. It was always me. And so my dad had this thing. He would always say, well, God knows. God knows.
Yeah.
So years later, we got together about something. I can't remember what it was. But my little sister said something, and I just looked at her. I said, well, God knows. That wasn't terrifying, though. But when I was little, the all-seeing eye, like, God is always watching.
Always.
That was scary. Didn't have to worry about Santa Claus watching. That didn't bother me.
Right.
But God's all-seeing eye, man, that was terrifying.
Right.
I just knew I was going straight to hell. Oh, Lord.
Yep.
So anyway, that was a little fun note to end on, the terrifying all-seeing eye of
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That is not what spirit is, by the way. Although it is always there.
There is no witch police.
Oh. But anyway, thank you both for having this conversation with me. And that will be the end of this episode. And we have a little fun with the elements coming up for episode 19. So stay tuned for then. And in the meantime, make sure you bring a little elemental magic into your everyday.
Yes.
Yes. Bye, y'all.
Bye.